Alright, testing 1, 2, 3. What's going on, fellow rogues? It's Mass Mayor here, and welcome in for chapter 3 of my book, Nightmare Country. This one being called The Demon. And this is also something that I did last night. For those who obviously tuned in for that, you know, there might be a little bit of confusion. I kind of explained it in YouTube and my community post earlier, as well as on my Gilded server and Instagram just a bit ago before I went live. Some things happened last night during the stream that kind of made it where I wasn't able to do things the way I wanted to, in regards to the fact that I had to go on a BRB, which of course broke up the whole seamless means that I try to take into reading the book to you guys. So I try to do this even though my reading and my grammar, or in regards to me stuttering, getting caught on words and everything, it kind of is due to that I'm not really the best with reading these off. You have a lot of more professional channels out there that do a similar thing, but obviously they're a lot better at it. They don't really stutter and all that. They don't get caught on words, but I try to make the best of it. But when it comes to me having to interrupt things midway when I'm reading through to the stuff that's happening in the background, obviously that kind of is where I kind of draw the line on this. So I want it to be a seamless experience for you guys. So if you're listening to this in your car, or if you're cleaning or whatever it is, you'll have I'll be trying my best to read it from start to finish with no interruptions. I mean, last night I was kind of going a little detail about some little behind the scenes stuff with some of the stuff that I wrote, but I'm gonna try to see about maybe saving some of that for the end of this time. But anyways, with that said, trying to definitely do a shorter introduction for this than I did last night as well. Chapter 3 for my book, picking up where we left off previously. In the last chapter, a lot happened with Dusk taking on Hell's Prophets, due to an event happening, when her and Fiona were in class. Hell's Prophets tried to kill Fiona, and Dusk stood up to them, and due to these events, Dusk ended up unlocking a special ability called a Dark Drive. For her, this was called the Crimson Razor Wind, which involved her basically using the blood in her own body to create a tornado of, flower petal fragments of her blood that were razor sharp, that she was able to turn into a tornado that pursued Hell's Prophets down a hallway after cutting off one of Dimitri's fingers and basically almost sliced them to ribbons. So Dusk ended up going to the nurse's station because of this, because it caused her to pass out. It pretty much used the majority of the blood in her body, so she had to recover. And along with this, Fiona met two of the new arrivals at the school, Ren and Crow. And, Ren being a vampire, Crow being a shapeshifter. And following this, it led up to the events that are currently going on right here at the start of this chapter, which is after taking some breakfast to Oki, who's on room rest due to the events of Stonewall cracking some of her ribs, fracturing some of her ribs in chapter 1. Fiona went up to Oki's room to bring her breakfast, and trying to go back down to go to her next class, a malevolent entity has appeared inside the elevator going down to the bottom to the ground floor, and due to Fiona being able to detect auras, this thing having a very malevolent, evil aura to it, it actually is causing physical pain to Fiona. The entity itself hasn't shown itself yet. The elevator stopped right here at the floor that right here at the floor that Fiona's on. And in this chapter, we're going to see exactly who that entity is. So we're going to be starting the reading now. Chapter 3, The Demon. Everything began to grow dark. Sorry. Everything... Okay. I feel like this one caught my throat. Sorry about that, guys. Alright, trying this again. Chapter 3, The Demon. Everything began to grow dark even though it was daytime outside. Fiona then noticed, after looking at a wall clock, the hand that counted the seconds was starting to slow down, as the time itself was stopping. What's happening? Oki, Scarlet, Dusk, anybody? Fiona said in a panic as she backed away from the elevator and fell backwards over a chair as she struggled to breathe. The pain became so unbearable that she couldn't stand up. Fiona watched as the elevator slowly began to open, and as it did, her heart now felt the blood pumping through it. The blood pumping through it was on fire. One final surge of energy from the dark aura shot through her body, and Fiona screamed at the top of her lungs. She held her body while laying on the floor. Her skin felt like it was freezing as goosebumps formed on the surface, while in a paradox, every muscle felt like it was ablaze. Every bone in her body felt like it was about to splinter. Her heart was pounding hard, and her lungs felt like they were full of needles with each taxed breath. Using every bit of her strength just to turn her neck, she looked down the hall to see no one coming to her aid. The time indeed seemed to have stopped, that it was so dark. She knew that some type of magic had kept any outside interference from occurring. No one had even heard her cries for help or even her screams. As injured as she was, Fiona knew Oki would still have rushed out to assist her, cracked ribs be damned. She was all alone with whatever was only feet away. "Where is she?" Fiona heard a raspy voice say. The voice had a thick Russian accent to it, and it come from a tall man who had stepped off the elevator. Taller than most people that Fiona had seen, considering he seemed to stand at around 8 feet. Dressed in a black suit and matching leather trench coat, his eyes were completely red with no pupils or irises, and he had patches of white hair in random places on his head, while the other areas were balding. His skin was deathly pale and white, as if he had just climbed out of a grave, and his fingernails were long and pointed like spikes. A pair of large viper-like fangs gleamed in his mouth. Whoever this man was, it was obvious he was a vampire. A powerful one. He walked towards Fiona, with each step causing her to twitch and spasm more and more in agony from the aura seeping from him. He was followed by 4 women dressed in black robes with the same colored eyes as him, and fingernails just as long and sharp, each one of them having 2 scars on their necks and prominent fangs from being turned. "Where is she? Who are you talking about? And who the hell are you anyway?" Fiona struggled to get out as she tried to reach for her spell book, only to find that she couldn't move her arm. It had now locked up from the pain, the same with most of her body. "Who am I? Well, I'm surprised your friend hasn't mentioned me, given I'm the one who turned her after all. The child would think herself cunning to forget me. I feel shunned, replaced. And for what? Lesser creatures? So droll," he said in the same raspy voice. You're the one who turned Dusk, Lord Serac," Fiona said as she finally found the strength to stand up, pointing at him very weakly, only to have her legs collapse. As she fell, she saw the man raise one of his hands. She found herself floating before being seated slowly in a nearby chair. Telekinesis-based spells. Fiona recognized it at once. "Come, child. No need for such a beautiful face to be bloodied on the floor without need," the man said, showing a sinister yet seemingly compassionate smile. Fiona managed to disregard the pain for a few minutes. She found herself feeling more anger towards the malevolent person in front of her. Knowing the kindness in his smile was as real as oxygen on Mars, especially given his disrespect and what he just called her and Dusk's other friends. Lesser creatures. More so especially for what she already knew he had put Dusk through. "Cut the false chivalry, asshole. We get enough of that from another douchebag here named Dmitri. You're too corrupt for even grasp the definition for that. So if you are the one Dusk has told us about, tell me why I shouldn't kill you myself for what you put her through," Fiona said, ever enraged though still clutching her heart, wincing in pain. She knew she was nowhere near as intimidating as she wanted to sound, and likely wouldn't have been even if she wasn't currently overwhelmed by pain from him simply showing up. But she refused to give him the luxury of thinking he scared her, even though she was beyond terrified. The man gave a laugh that sent chills down Fiona's spine. "Yes, child, I am indeed Lord Serac. I have no need to feel concerned for your frail and useless attempts to frighten me, for you couldn't destroy me even if you tried. I have simply come for what is mine after almost 3 years of searching, and would like to take my leave as quickly and painlessly as I have arrived. That is, painlessly on my end, since you seem to be in such discomfort. So enlighten me. Where is Dusk?" Lord Serac said coldly, the entire time his sick smile gone from his nightmarish face. "No, I won't tell you. Dusk is my friend, and I won't turn on her. So given we've got that out of the way, how about you go ahead and kill me, and then kindly fuck off? And while you're at it, take this Wish App domain expansion with you. There's people here who have classes to attend," Fiona proclaimed. She felt the same way the other night when Dmitri attacked her, and the feeling was still the same. Friendship mattered to her more than death. This was solidified further as she looked at the women standing behind him. Had Dusk not escaped that night, before Serac had finished his plans for her, she would have ended up just like him. A shell of her former self and a slave only to him. "Such foolishness, even shouting off nonsensical jokes to appear less afraid than you are," he said. "I've read and watched a lot of Jujutsu Kaisen, dickhead. Deal with it," Fiona snapped back. "I know not the subject matter behind the pop culture reference you just made, nor does it matter. I have an eternity of life while you are forced to live on its limited thread. Therefore, I see it as a burden to be tasked with killing you now. But know that I will reclaim my prize. The night will be my vessel, the shadows will be my shroud, and you will never see me until it's too late. So enjoy your time with her while you may, child, because though my influence and power are limited now, the end of the day will mark my rise, and let it be known that you will be one of the first to fall. Fiona Morellis." Lord Serac said. "What do you mean your influence and power are limited?" "How the hell do you know my name?" Fiona asked. She wanted the pain to stop, which wouldn't until he was gone. He intended to leave without attacking her, as he said. But she was tired of more questions with no answers. "You'll see soon enough, I assure you. Until then, farewell, weak and foolish child. Enjoy your day while it lasts," Lord Serac said with another laugh before entering the elevator with his love slaves behind him. As he did, the pain that was coursing through Fiona's body subsided, and she saw that it was getting bright again throughout the hallway. She felt her breaths come easier, the mix of heat and cold in her body subside. Her heart finally slowed down as well, though it still burned. She staggered to her feet. She looked at the clock on the wall, to which she saw that the second hand, which had stopped completely before, had begun to move again. Her mind, however, was a hurricane of thoughts more than ever before. Should she tell Mr. Kendrick or Dusk of what just happened? No, because if anything, Serac was wrong about his thoughts that Dusk had forgotten him, because it couldn't be anything more the opposite, which is exactly why Fiona felt she couldn't tell Dusk. At least not yet. Dusk had already spent countless nights wide awake out of fear that Serac would return for her, and aside from Fiona herself, Scarlet and Oki both vowed to protect her. However, after feeling how powerful Lord Serac was, Fiona felt no hope of stopping him. And that was with him claiming he wasn't at full strength. As she pressed the button to bring the elevator back up, she had held her spell book at the ready in case he may have still been on it. She didn't feel the pain from his aura like before, but she still felt it was possible for him to appear without warning. The truth was, while never so intense, it wasn't the first time she had dealt with her body reacting to auras in such a way, considering that her family had visited places where evil was at such a high that no human life even dared to step foot there, be it out of fear, superstition, or simply rumors of demons and monsters that reside at such places. Such reason for people to stay calm came with obvious cause, more so from the treasures themselves, which were an omen of ill will and dark fate to those who feared witchcraft. Hidden in those evil places were most of the powerful spells that Fiona was to inherit one day. Her family collected every one of the spells and added them to a large book kept in the basement of her home. The spells themselves weren't considered evil nor good, and only became such based on the moral standings and ethics of those who used them. Fiona was unsure of what the spells did, but she knew that since they were originally forbidden for being so powerful, they could possibly inflict a crippling blow to Lord Serac and maybe the individual members of Hell's Prophets. This, however, was more wishful thinking in her mind than anything, especially given that the spells weren't with her at the moment and she knew herself that she was nowhere near ready to use them. But that didn't mean she was defenseless. As the elevator came up, Fiona took a stance and locked her eyes on a particular incantation for a void spell. She could cast it quick enough, it would create a makeshift black hole and possibly carry Lord Serac to another dimension where he would be turned inside out and then ripped apart. Only instead of sucking in everything around her, including herself, it would only focus on Fiona's target. Alright, you bastard. Show your face. Fiona said as she stood where she was, scared but ready to face him. The elevator arrived and slowly opened. Fiona breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that no one was on it. Or so it seemed. She stepped down the elevator, but before she could press the button to the first floor, the button lit up on its own, causing the elevator to close as if someone had pressed the button. But she didn't see anyone. Hello. First floor, miss? The voice said. Fiona batted herself against one of the walls in shock. You know, you really do not have to be rude. I pressed the button for you, and this is the thanks I get? The voice continued. Who are you? Fiona said, feeling around trying to cast the form of anything and trying to cast out the idea of it being a ghost. You just met me around 20 minutes ago, and you already forgot my voice? The voice replied. Suddenly a form began to manifest. Ren? But how? Fiona said, wondering how Ren hid himself. Simple. I can turn invisible. Ren answered back. Oh, of course. I forgot that some vampires can do that, Fiona said. Not in my family. We lack the ability. Ren told her. Then how? Fiona asked him. Ninja school, Ren answered. You still expect me to believe you're a ninja? Fiona asked. You can believe what you want, since it's all a matter of opinion, but enough about that. Are you okay, Fiona? You look a little sick, and you are sweating. Is your cold getting worse? Ren said, showing a worried look. Though as worried as she felt he truly was, she could tell he was also mocking her still about earlier. Hope you would have forgotten. Damn, Fiona thought to herself. Even so, more pressing matters came to mind. Fiona wanted to tell someone about what just happened, but she couldn't. At least not yet. Oh, I'm fine. Just a little winded from trying to rush to class, she said in a small lie. Ren just looked at her and then shrugged his shoulders as if saying, if you say so. I thought you were in testing, though, Fiona asked him. I have to wait, seeing as it seems Mr. Kendrick booked another student after Crow and before me and forgot about it, he explained. Fiona raised her eyebrow partially because he referred to Crow by name when he was in testing at the time that Ren arrived. How did he know his name? And more importantly, he spoke of another student who by all means would have been impossible for her to miss. Another student? I don't understand. So far, the only students that I was aware of were you and Crow, Fiona said, sounding confused. Well, apparently that means the third new student, may actually have been the second, Ren explained. But I had been out in the lobby since before Crow arrived, and he was the first. I couldn't have missed anyone between you and him, Fiona explained. Ren was about to speak when his phone rang. Hold on, I have to take this, Ren said as he looked at the screen. As he answered, he showed a slight smile, but as the conversation went on, his expression changed from a smile to disgust and back to a smile. Fiona, however, was caught off guard in the fact that Ren talked differently in this conversation. Though he still had a proper tone, it was a speech that was less formal diatribe and replaced with what made him sound more like a teenager of the current era, albeit one who was forever 19. Hey man. What? Well, you are still going to be on time, correct? Okay, so how many bars have you two been to? 5? And you were kicked out of all of them? Oh, so it was his fault. Should have known. Still, though, that is understandable considering that you do not drink, meaning you have common sense to avoid bar confrontations. Just make sure that he is sober by the time you get here, because if he shows up intoxicated, it may end up causing problems for him in orientation. Alright, see you soon, dude. Bye. Ren said to whoever was on the other end. From what Fiona could make out by how Ren was talking to the person, and how he brought up someone that the said person was with multiple times, it was a certainty that they were 2 more of the new students, meaning that Ren did need to know who they were to some capacity. Considering that the conversation was geared around bars, the 2 must have been at least in their 20s. As Fiona got off the elevator, she had the urge to ask Ren who he was talking to, but rudeness and such aside, she couldn't waste any time if she was going to get to her country myths and legends class without being tardy. Thoughts were overbearing on her, but she didn't need more confusion at the moment. Ren, I have to run to class, but I'll talk to you at lunch maybe? Fiona explained. Sure thing, Ren said simply. At that, Fiona ran down the hallway with only 20 seconds to make it to the classroom. As she did, Ren stood where he was with a serious look on his face. He was hearing a voice inside his head, one that was familiar to him. I've been inside her head, man. She's uncertain on everything, but nonetheless, she is slowly piecing things together, and seeing as she feels the same way about Crow, what if she finds out who we are too soon? The voice said. You worry too much, and yes, I am aware that she suspects me. Not that she has been that subtle in attempting to hide it, but she and her friends are going to find out soon anyway. That aside, I take it you are done with your tests? Ren answered to the voice. Ren got his reply as someone slowly rose up from the floor in front of him as if it was water. Dramatic to no ends, Finch, let me tell you. Ren said as the person the voice belonged to showed himself. Finch Morgan, age 24, climbed out of the normally firm metal and tile floor of the elevator as if it was a swimming pool. He had brown eyes and wore glasses with thick and straight dark brown hair that fell to his neck. His 5'10" frame was adorned with a red t-shirt and a white and gray jacket, black cargo pants, and a pair of white sneakers. I ranked a B on my testing in case you were wondering, but only because I held back some. I wasn't going for a dramatic entrance, I just figured it was quicker to come from the testing areas beneath us like this instead of taking the stairs to meet up with you. Finch explained. You could have used another elevator, Ren said. Yeah, about that. See, a psychic warlock in a possibly crowded elevator? Not the best place for me to be. Finch said sarcastically. Indeed, I forgot about that one time. Anyway, I just talked to him and he said they will be here soon. Ren explained. I know, not that they are really needed at the time anyway, since it seems our other friends aren't even on the school grounds at the moment. I guess when that girl found her dark drive, it scared them to a point where they were afraid to be here. But let's just hope that they don't encounter Kine and Lupe, considering I'm sensing that they are walking around Ravenrock Hollow at this very moment trying to find a way to cope with what happened to them here a while ago. They explained in a calm manner. Kine and Lupe can take care of themselves. Do you not recall that the 2 of them have employment in a field dedicated to fighting our fellow creatures of the night? Ren said. That's true. But I'd still like for things to not get out of hand. At least not yet. Finch told him. Down the hallway of the school, Fiona had made it to the set classroom for country myths and legends with only a few seconds to spare. The teacher hadn't arrived yet, but she still took haste in finding a seat. As she looked around, she noticed Dusk sitting by herself in one of the far corners. She looked better than she did before, but her skin was still paler than normal. Even so, she had a look of sadness on her face, which wasn't helped by the fact that the rest of the students seemed to be avoiding Dusk. It was out of fear, and Fiona herself had been afraid a little while ago herself, but that was fear out of concern for her friend, and even so, it wasn't so much that dark drive itself, but the aftermath of it. Watching Dusk's veins show on her entire body, seeing her pass out, the cold feeling in her hands that were even more cold than what they normally were, a cold that seemed to be inviting death to whisk her away fully instead of her former revenant nature. Fiona showed a smile and walked over to Dusk, sitting down next to her. Feeling better? Fiona asked. Dusk didn't reply as she stared down at the floor, a blank expression on her face. She had heard Fiona clearly. She was just at a loss for words. Dusk, sweetie, it's okay. Fiona said sincerely. She put her arms around her. Fiona, what the fuck is happening to me? I'm afraid. Dusk said. Her eyes filled with bloody tears. She hugged back. Fiona knew all the answers thanks to Scarlet and Oki, but what would it solve if she was to tell Dusk in her already fragile state of mind? How could she bring herself to tell her, let alone find the word for it? Way to word it. How could she tell her that her friend, that even though she was becoming more powerful, more incidents like that were possible if she had multiple dark drives, that for all she knew, Dusk may go through the same thing again from the one she already had due to having to adapt to it still. Fiona knew she had a lot to understand still in regards to dark drives, but there was one thing about the Crimson Razor Wind that was very easy to comprehend. It required blood. Dusk intentionally deprived herself of such. Being dead Vampires didn't utilize blood for bodily functions other than sustenance. This was a key thing that differentiated them from another type of dead creature. Zombies, who ate brains and flesh because of a ravenous insatiable hunger with no actual benefit. Fiona studied the complex biology of both creatures on a scientific standpoint and noted they were caused by preternatural viruses that killed their host and brought them back to life. The exception was that vampirism reserved the body after death while reactivating the brain in full, which is why a vampire could function without lungs or a heart. The requirement for blood was to get nutrients in a way that consuming food to the digestive tract would no longer allow. Zombification, however, reanimated the body and brain with no preservation system, controlling the brain in a more primal and rabid state, as it and the host's body decayed. Wherever they ate gave them no nutritional benefit, no satiation to their hunger, and if anything, they would continue to eat even though their stomach had already burst from it. Some movies and comic books gave explanations such as feeding on brains giving zombies endorphins to soothe the pain from their flesh decomposing, or that their bodies worked enough to where they could still starve. But it was all fiction. Fiona knew the truth and fully understood it, and yet the concept of growing stronger through such means was frightening to her all the same. If Dusk did feed like a normal vampire, that would possibly bypass the side effects like what she went through earlier, though as Scarlet said, the first dark drive was always the worst. She hated doing it, but she couldn't tell Dusk the truth yet. I don't know, Fiona lied. I'm already an outcast in this school, though you yourself have expressed feeling that way. But how could I ever hope to fit in now after what happened earlier? If that isn't not bad enough, a boy got himself killed trying to protect me, Fiona. He lost his life over someone as pathetic as me. Could have at least waited for someone better to need saving. Dusk cried out, causing most of the class to look at her oddly and speak whispers about her among themselves. Fiona stared at all of them. How about minding your own business? In case any of you are too dense to let it register, she's not exactly having a good day. Fiona lashed out. Well, maybe if she wasn't here, things would be better for all of us, one of the male students shouted. Dusk lowered her head. The look on her face devastated Fiona, but not as much as the sight of Dusk quietly breaking into a faster cascade of tears before running out of the classroom without a single word, leaving Fiona seated alone. Really, man? That was low, one of the student's friends said. Well, it's true. The bitch is practically a walking plague. Who's to say we won't keel over if we were so much as to stand next to her? The student replied back. Thwam. Several students let out gasps, followed by the sound of many whispered words of gossip. Sharp pain went through the student's mouth. While he held it with both hands, blood dripping through his fingers, Fiona stood over him. Her teeth were gritted as her lip twitched, but she had an attack with a spell. A point proven by steady drops of her blood dripping from her right knuckle due to one of the student's teeth scratching her fist when it collided with his mouth. And maybe, if you were the one to get killed by Dimitri earlier, things would be better also. If anyone is a plague, it's you, and you consider that punch a vaccination for your diagnosis of big mouth syndrome. Fiona snapped before pushing him out of his desk and walking out of the classroom to follow Dusk, brushing past the teacher who had just entered as she did. Miss Morellis, you have class now, so return to your seat, the teacher said in an attempt to stop her. Write me out because I'm busy right now, Fiona replied as she walked down the hallway, storming past a random Finch who she didn't seem to notice. At least not until Ren spoke to her. Fiona, would your class not be in the other direction? Ren asked. Shut up, she said without looking back. Ren let out a slight gasp in surprise at how she responded. If you don't turn around right now and get back to your seat, you will have detention, the teacher yelled after her. Fiona's body shook as she balled up her fist and grated her teeth before stopping. I don't give one single fuck. Do you see any fucks in my purse, under my tongue, behind my ears, and my bra? When I have a fuck to give, I'll let you know, but until then, pre-order one. Fiona turned and yelled loudly, surprising the teacher and caused everyone to go dead silent in the hallway. Fiona wasn't the type to yell at teachers or adults, let alone at all most times in normal situations. She was known as a very gentle person, but given the current events and everything else on her mind, she was too upset to hold back her emotions even if she didn't mean what she said. She would own up later, but that was later, not the present. As she saw Dusk run towards the door outside, Fiona broke into a run as well. She watched as Dusk jumped into the air and started to fly off. Dusk, where do you think you're going? Please, just come back down here and talk to me, Fiona yelled up at her, watching her best friend ascend higher and higher. Dusk then stopped as she looked down, her hair swaying in the wind as her tears fell. I need time away from this place, Fiona. I'll be back in please, Fiona. I'll be back in a few hours, but for now, I just want to be alone. Tell Scholar not to worry about me, nor should you. Dusk said as she wiped more blood from her eyes. Fiona looked down. Just don't be gone long. And look, just be careful, okay? I'll explain things to Mr. Kendrick and Scarlet. Fiona replied, though somewhat reluctant, letting Dusk leave. She had a slight fear that Dusk might do something stupid, but she knew that Dusk had better control over herself than she used to when she lived on the streets. At least she hoped she still did. Dusk flew off in the direction of the city, her speed increasing more and more while Fiona's eyes followed her until she was a faint dot in the distance. Seconds later, Ren walked outside along with Finch. she okay? Ren asked Fiona. Fiona just stood there silently before glancing at Finch. Oh, I feel like an idiot. Fiona Morellis, this is Finch Morgan. He is a new student that Mr. Kendrick had tested before me. Ren explained. What's up? Finch said in an upbeat tone, trying to get Fiona to smile. Hi, Finch. It's nice to meet you. Fiona said as she pushed past them both before walking back into the school with her head bent down. Feel loved, Finch said to Ren. Well, it can be seen as quite obvious that she is worried about her friend, Ren pointed out. Finch simply nodded his head. As Fiona walked back to her country myths and legends class, the same student that she had punched before met her halfway, holding his mouth and staring at her angrily. Because of you, I have to go to the nurse's station. There. You happy? He said, his words muffled from his mouth being swollen. Fiona turned her head away. Her eyes narrowed, she pursed her lips, and her cheeks flared into a deep shade of red. Thwam. Fiona swung hard on the boy yet again, only this time the impact had knocked him to the floor. As he boned up in a fetal position, he spat out in his hand not only blood, but a tooth. Fiona grabbed the boy by his shirt collar. No, asshole, I'm not happy. See, I could punch you again, and again. But it still made me feel better, given how you showed no respect in what you said to my friend. The pain your words were carrying was completely unnecessary, hence why now you're feeling pain yourself. Though it's nothing compared to what she's likely got feeling in her mind right now. Deal with it just like Dusk has to right now. And when she comes back, I demand that you apologize to her, both verbally spoken and written. Assuming you live that long, Fiona said coldly. She let go of his shirt and continued on her way, leaving the boy crying on the floor, his mouth now swollen up even more. Though not too swollen to ask her a question. What do you mean by if I live that long? He asked. Be it the cold yet calm octave and Fiona's voice in her reply, the two simple yet terrifying words carried with that voice, or both. The pain in the student's jaw was drowned out by fear at the name she mentioned. Scarlett Carson, she said without looking back. As Fiona walked, her head became filled with more surges of sense power. She no longer cared. Anger and worry were the only feelings going through Fiona's mind at the moment, so she disregarded every spike of energy that made itself known. It was all in her head. It was only false sensing to her, something she found herself doing whenever she was depressed or angry. It wasn't Lord Serac. It wasn't a mysterious warlock. It wasn't a mysterious attacker terrifying Hell's prophets. It was only her. Or so she continued to tell herself. Across the city at one of Ravenrock Hollow's many bars, a young man was having a drink as he sat at a table with another man who was occupied with a notebook. His legs propped up on a table while he wrote in it as a pair of headphones blasted music into his ears. You know, we've been to 5 bars today, and every one of them you haven't had so much as one drink. The man with the drink said to the other. What? The other man said as he pulled the headphones off his head, leaving them hanging around his neck, though his eyes never left the notebook. It wasn't solely how the music drowned the words out, but because those same words had a slight slur to them. The one man repeated himself, leaning to the other, rolling his eyes. He then spoke, still not making eye contact with anything but his written words. Lupe, you know I've never had so much as a beer in my life, and I'm not about to start. Are you that inebriated to where your mind is once again taken as false as a midnight senility? The other man said calmly. Yet with heavy sarcasm mixed in with his serious words, he looked up at the notebook. His eyes narrowed at the other. Eyes of a very odd, unnatural color, given that his pupils were white, while the irises were green with slight hints of crimson swirls. I was kidding, man. Jeez. Seriously, Kyan. You should make an attempt at being more fun sometimes. Learn how to take a joke or two, Lupe said. Are you fluttering with the fairies down Rum Road that much? Are you really that rat-ass shit-faced on Beer Boulevard to where you've forgotten that I have a very open and noticeable sense of humor? Besides that, in the concept of jokes and punchlines, just how much do I put up with you every day? Now, how much longer are we going to hang out here? We don't want to be late for school orientation. Kyan asked. Let out soon. I'll go get a few more drinks first, Lupe replied. You said that 4 bars ago, Kyan said. Look, damn it. I'll be ready to go when I have another 3 drinks. You can wait. Fiona says, Lupe said as he pointed his finger in a direction several degrees off from Kyan's position. Right out a window at a man who had been walking by and proceeded to give Lupe the finger in reply. Kyan took Lupe's arm and aligned it directly towards him. Your sense of direction really frustrated the fuck out of my OCD right then. More than the dude outside who wasted 2 seconds of sign language on you. That said, first off, don't tell me to wait because I'll leave your ass here to play tongue tangle with the floor when you pass out. And secondly, you need to take it easy anyway, given you're driving the truck and all of our stuff's on it. Therefore, there's no way in hell I'm letting you drive when your borderline asshole wrinkle's crocked. I'll prefer not to have that go further, Kyan said, putting down the notebook and brushing his hair from his eyes, showing his face entirely. Kyan Bates, age 25, stood somewhat taller than Lupe at around 6 foot, even though he was more slender and with some muscle on him. Raven black locks of hair fell a couple of inches past his shoulders in a needle-straight fashion, also swept in and out of his unnaturally colored eyes. His face showed a look of intensity after years of hardship. He had piercings in both ears in the form of a pair of 5/8 chrome tunnels, though his hair, which hung to his lower jaws on the sides, concealed them. Kyan's choice of clothing, usually tilted towards his own unique style, which is, as with labels such as goth or punk, tended to shock and repulse normal people, though most of the negative attention he got came from his body modifications. Not that he cared about their opinions, given that he was about free expression. He wore a pair of baggy black cargo pants and black Adidas with white stripes, a black tank top overlaid with a black military jacket covering his upper torso. This jacket covered several tattoos that were on his arms, with the only ones visible being various video game symbols on both his knuckles, while the back of his right hand had a pair of cracked, smiling, and frowning theater masks with the words "Drama Sucks" under them. His left had a bloody aces and eights hand of cards etched on it, with a Joker card that held the visage of a skeletal jester over the other 4 cards. Beneath the cards were the words "fuck luck," which in combination with the orange number 13 on his left wrist were Kind's way to define the myth of unluckiness earned by the cards other names, other namesake of the dead man's hand. On his head were a pair of thin frame motorcycle goggles with black lenses and a red color on the frame itself, while his neck was decorated with a pair of dog tags he had made at a fair a few months before. One contained the names of some of his family and friends, while the other carried a single birthday, 06/20/1962, though he had never told anyone whose birthday it was. Kyan tried to keep his powers concealed, considering that contrary to an appearance that would lead anyone who didn't know him to think he was a troublemaker, he actually tried to avoid conflict as much as possible unless he felt a fight was necessary. The truth was, however, he had a background that he wasn't proud of, even if it wasn't him who had done anything wrong. His veins were filled to the brim with the life essence of a bloodline that had the wrong kind of popularity. Murderers, rapists, far worse things. Unlike the rest of his family, aside from his mother and father, who before their deaths were the main ones who helped him to see the wrong in what had been stable in their family for centuries, behind Kyan's eyes were the vision of a person who lived only to help others. Considering that most of his ancestors had killed, raped, robbed, and overall destroyed countless people's lives, he had no reason to explain his reasons, which were obvious, and more than enough cause for why he hated such things with a passion, though the last thing he felt he should be called was a hero. He didn't live the way he did to try to make up for everything his family had done, because he knew no good deeds would ever be enough to repent for that. He did it because he knew it was the right way to live. It caused Kyan to be betrayed and hurt a lot mentally and emotionally, because to others, him being so nice meant that he would easily take the abuse without letting it bother him too much and let them keep walking on him. This also meant that he knew all too well what it was like to be made out as the bad guy by those who played victim after he put his foot down to being used, throwing him under the bus for the sake of protecting their own image. Nonetheless, he got stronger from those experiences and stuck to his guns with a heart in his chest that would never let him betray anyone intentionally. However, he also had a mouth that was like a gun in itself, a shotgun firing off when he had something to say to someone he didn't like, which he would make very apparent to them, even insulting people he considered friends from time to time, be it playfully or brutal honesty that bordered on caustic. Hardly anyone knew the true nature of why Kyan was the way he was, aside from his closest friends, and some didn't know who he was, period, because people didn't let themselves get close enough. Anyone who was neither friend nor foe wouldn't hear much out of him unless he needed to talk without avoiding such, because though he protected people, he didn't trust most of them. But one of those few friends he did trust 100%, even though they had their differences at times, was Lupe. Though they were more like brothers due to how long they had been friends. Lupe Kinley, age 27, was 2 years older than Kyan. Large gray eyes, an uncommon hairstyle given that he had his hair on both sides of his head cut short to 5 inches from his scalp and a vibrant hue of red, while the hair on top of his head spiked out in a defined point, each angled slightly in different directions to make a unique 14-inch green mohawk, while a thick frock of hair hung over his eye, with the emerald color hair on the back of his head extending down to the same fashion at the base of his neck. Lupe wore a green hoodie and a pair of brown cargo shorts that stopped at his knees, along with white skate shoes. He stood out in his own way, and they both were also completely different in what they really were species-wise. While Kyan tried to avoid fights whenever possible, Lupe loved getting into them, though at times he preferred just a friendly sparring match with Kyan, which Kyan would normally oblige him on. They were trained well enough, mostly from hands-on experience, and they had seen battles enough times to where such training paid off. Though modified extensively, Lupe was adept at a taekwondo compared to a hybrid style that Kyan used that consisted of street fighting, wrestling moves, and some self-taught martial arts. He specialized in kicks while still having force behind his punches, while Kyan was much more balanced and used all his tension of his body fluidly. But differences didn't stop there. It took a lot to make Kyan show true anger. He usually chose to talk things out using his usually calm tone, though often sarcastic and mouthy normal way of speech, unless he was livid to where he didn't care about being civil. This was namely if he didn't like the person. Lupe usually could be set off by a single word or gesture, and would hit first without a thought. But Kyan had on a few occasions slapped someone in the face the moment they'd raised their voice. For his well-known reputation of enjoying fights, Lupe had been jokingly called an animal before by people. What they didn't realize, however, was how literally Lupe personified that. Especially when he had knocked a few back. "Chill, man, I'll be fine." Even if I do have one too many, I'll sober up before we leave, Lupe assured him. You had one too many who knows how many shot glasses ago, and you know damn well that you will not sober up without transforming, Kyan said. Some people in the city haven't seen my kind before, Lupe said, and they sometimes tend to be scared of your kind. When in close proximity to one, given your species is known for being a bit more volatile at times, idiot, Kyan told him. As they sat there in what was now a slight argument, a skinny woman possibly in her late 20s with blue eyes and straight brown hair to her lower jaw at the sides and semi-short in the back in an undercut style with eye-length bangs walked over. She had sudden piercing and a captive ring in the side of her lip, along with several studs and barbells in her ears. Her clothing consists of a white, fix that later, of a gray crop top, black miniskirt, and red Converses. Hello, Jade, Kyan said as he greeted her with a smile. Jade? Lupe greeted in only one word as he raised his glass back to his mouth, showing a slight smile. And how are my two favorite boys? Jade said as she giggled before sitting down next to Kyan. Wrapped an arm around him as she hugged him and planted a kiss on his cheek, to which Kyan glanced at her and scrunched his face calmly before smiling at her. Jade Garcia was the bartender, owner, and lone employee who ran the entire bar, which she had jokingly named Spirits of Ravenrock. She had been one of their closest friends since the day they helped her with an obsessed and abusive ex-boyfriend a couple years before. An act that cost Jade a door, seeing as Lupe had kicked the man into it, followed by Kyan punching him in the face hard enough to break the hinges, sending him out to the sidewalk on top of the door, with a broken nose, 7 missing teeth, a dislocated shoulder, and a shattered ego. Since then, she always considered them her number one customers, and as she quoted jokingly, bouncers. Though only Lupe ever bought anything, and Kyan just came there to make sure Lupe behaved himself. That which was a task in itself, though, in Lupe's case. She simply let him fix his own drinks usually. She also had many tattoos all over her body, and each time she got more work done, Kyan was always intrigued to know what new designs she had. She was the same towards him since he had more than his arms done. Was that you working on there, cutie? Love letter to a lucky girl? Jade said jokingly as she noticed the long lines of words Kyan had wrote in his book. Hardly. If anything, she hates me now, Kyan said as he brushed his hair aside again, not looking up from the page. Oh, who can hate anyone with such a big heart and gorgeous personality, let alone good looks as a plus? Jade asked him as she leaned her head on his shoulder. You'd be very surprised at the people who do, Jade. Me and Lupe both have our share, although that being said, a lot of the enemies I've made are thanks to this jackass and his drunken adventures. Kyan said as he gently stroked a hand through her hair, glancing at her. Hey! Lupe said as he caught sound of Kyan's remark. Did I lie, Lupe? Unless you have a twin that's been hanging with me at times, which I highly doubt, given that I don't think God would make something so ugly twice. No matter how much humanity at times might deserve such acts of smiting for a tendency to lack common sense. Kyan said to him, to which Lupe kept silent. Well, if you ever decide to date again, I wouldn't mind taking a shot at giving you happiness, Jade said as she looked at him in the eyes. Kyan avoided eye contact as he looked back at his book. You know what I am, Jade, and I'm very sorry, but even if I was ready, I would have to decline. That is, at least unless I could gain full control of what lays dormant inside me, Kyan said. Jade looked down. If only he were inside me, she said under her breath. Oh, what was that, Jade? Kyan asked. Nothing, Jade said abruptly in panic. I know what she said, Lupe started to respond. That bar tap's growing quick, don't you think, Lupe? She interrupted. Her eyes were wide and her cheeks were as red as a radish. You wouldn't. You told me drinks were on the house for life after we kicked your ex's ass, he responded, trying to slam both hands on the table only for one of them to drunkenly miss, almost causing him to hit the floor. My bar, thus I express my right to rescind. Now lay off, Jade threatened, her voice still of haste. Lupe grabbed a napkin and mimicked waving a white flag before zipping his hand over his lip. Jade looked back at Kyan. Maybe not enough girls have told you this, but you're one in a million, even if you aren't human. You have a heart like the purest breed. Hell, I might not even be alive if it wasn't for you and Lupe being around because my ex could have killed me that day. I've seen what you can do, and I've seen Lupe when he lets out what he really is. I know you would never hurt me, Jade said to him as she gripped his hand. I know I wouldn't, at least not intentionally, and I'm part of a pure breed, I suppose. Dying breed in two senses of the word, even if I don't take myself in high regard on something people should be to each other in the first place on this fucked up planet. Dying breed not just in the male species, but one of only two left in my bloodline. But I could hurt you more by accident than another man you could find who may do so on purpose. Just know this, Jade. I'm always here for you. Kyan said as he put a hand on her cheek and smiled. Jade showed a slight smile, though he could tell she was keeping from crying. You know, if any other guy were to say such things, I probably would never believe him and just peg such words as a bullshit excuse. But I trust you. Can you at least consider it if you do ever gain control to where you can safely date this mere mortal? She asked. Kyan simply nodded his head and did a cross motion over his heart. That's good enough for me, Dollface. Anyway, I have to run out and get a few things from one of the other bars in the city. You think you and Lupe can keep an eye on things before you go to school? Your orientation is today, right? Jade said. Sure. We have a bit of time to spare, yeah. Kind agreed. Thank you, Lovely. Just be careful because, as you've seen, some of my customers can be a bit wild when they've had a few. Jade warned him. As if right on cue. Hey, babe. Let's say you come back to my place and sit on my face. A voice said from a seat behind where Kai and Lupe were sitting. Jade looked over her shoulder in disgust at the moderately intoxicated patron. Her response in kind being a roll of her eyes, she turned her head back away from him. She had dealt with such types before. Barely in his 20s. Backwards baseball cap with a bandana underneath. Gold chain hanging around his neck. A tight shirt, chosen as daily attire for the sake of showing off his muscles, and hands he could not keep to himself. The man quickly inched his hand forward in an attempt to cop a feel on Jade's rear. So, I've got a question. You want her to sit on your face because your nose is bigger than your dick? A sudden outburst of laughter from Jade, as well as those words, stopped the man's hand in its tracks. Indeed, Jade had dealt with this type before, but he hadn't dealt with someone like Kai Bates, who was currently staring right at him. I'm going to say this in a language that a spray-tan troglodyte like you can understand. Pull that hand away from her ass or you're going to lose it. Which wouldn't bode well for your ability to steer your loud car that you think sounds cool when you rev your engine when it actually sounds like a pissed-off bee. Kine said. Another uproar of laughter from Jade led to the patron's face turning bright red. At this, fuck you, he yelled before tossing a beer bottle at Kyan. He, however, caught the bottle. Crash. Kyan continued to glare at him as pieces of shattered glass fell to the floor, where they shattered into smaller pieces along with the drops of his blood. But not a single grimace of pain showed on his face as his hand bled freely from crushing the bottle. No thanks, pal. You're not really my type. Plus, if I wanted to taste something orange, I'd grab a bag of Cheetos. That said, I already crushed your dignity like I did this bottle, so why don't you run along and join back up with Marky Mark and the rest of the funky bunch, before I give you some not-so-good vibrations by rattling your brain. Kine insulted yet again. While he spoke, the wounds on his hand quickly closed. At this, the young man quickly got up and with a few stumbles ran out of the building. You'd figure he wouldn't have been surprised to see someone heal so quickly in the city. Must be new in town, Kine thought. So you know, sweetie, I actually like that song. Why are you hating on good vibrations? Jade suddenly said to Kyan. Her eyebrow raised while she grabbed the broom and dustpan to sweep up the broken glass. I love the song myself, but for the sake of that insult, he didn't have to know that. And to answer your prior concern, I think it was just made obvious that we can handle if things get rowdy. Besides, hang out with this rabid wild animal every day, remember? Kyan said as he looked at Lupe. Lupe paid no attention to Kyan's words as he walked over to the bar to fix his 5th Long Island iced tea. Just try not to break anything. Jade said jokingly before she hugged Kyan again while kissing him gently on his forehead and walked off out of the bar with multiple guys eyeing her the whole way out as if she was a piece of meat. Jeez. I thought troglodytes were more prone to caves, was all Kyan said as he went back to his notebook, yet again only to hear another female voice. Hey there, sexy, the woman said. Kyan slightly shook his head. I'm sorry, and please don't take this the wrong way, but I'm not interested. Kyan said bluntly yet honestly as he wrote without looking. The woman said nothing else and only scoffed as she walked off with Kyan making out the sound of stiletto heels and slight creaks in the wooden planks that made up the bar's floor. He glanced at her as she walked away in tight blue jean shorts. Her hips, which she shook left and right as she walked, intentionally standing out. The tight halter top that showed off a toned stomach with a navel piercing, yet constricted her breast to where you could see the form of the circles within circles underneath the fabric, and the sound of those stiletto heels on that creaky floor. Now I see how Jade feels. Still, at least she was more polite and didn't try to grope me, Kyan thought to himself. A slight look at the left gave Kyan the sight of the same group of guys who eyeballed Jade looking at Lupe as he sat at the bar with his drink and a bowl of peanuts, not bothering anything except the laws of gravity as he struggled to keep his balance on the stool while watching what appeared to be cartoons, laughing under breath behind his back and pointing their thumbs at him to their friends, obviously mocking him. I've got a bad feeling about this. Still, no acting light until such a time comes. Kyan thought to himself while he turned his eyes away from Lupe again and put his headphones back over his ears. Turned the song to Torture by Joan Red from their album The Side Effects of You. It was a rock band that he felt had so much potential before their lead singer died years back. He went back to writing, to which only a few minutes passed before he put the notebook down, done with his work. In response to some of the things Kyan had been through, he had a natural talent for writing poetry, which usually was based around his own experiences, but were mostly geared at the world's problems that affected not just the supernatural, but human beings. Some people hated his work for how honest and blunt he was, be it if he was talking on another subject or to a person the rhymes were aimed at, and yet some praised it for those same reasons. Honesty that reflected his normal everyday attitude and everything. His current work was about the latter of those two. A girl that he had went through a horrible split with due to a line of work that he and Lupe were partners in. solely out of the fact that their job they undertook was a dangerous profession. If anything, he had seen her just weeks ago, but no words were exchanged. Though not all of the reason for the breakup was due to that, and he and Lupe did his career choices. If he were to date Jade, he knew she would be a great girlfriend, but there was a fear of what existed in his blood and what it would do not just to her, but anyone he got close to. The girl he wrote the poem about, though, however, showed that sometimes humans can be much more heartless than some monsters. That while he showed he had cared enough to feel concerned of what may happen if he didn't come back one day, or his bloodline's legacy showed true, she didn't care much for the relationship in the first place and only pretended to care when he left. Snow and memories forgotten by change. It is so cold tonight, overlooking the city of light, falling rain so white and slow. No longer only rains, it is now the icy flow of snow. In the sky, so many gray clouds and vague star whispering may we cut in scene in between the shrouds. Say it isn't so, she says, as he silently turns his back. Do everyone a favor and make a attempt at growing up. Remember who you were before you let your heart go black. She cries at every sentence and every word, so sensible to him, but to her absurd. He walks off towards the coming blizzard, never looking back at the girl who, for this false life, she made a sad exchange. She'll never see him again, because he's now the only one who cherishes these snowy memories she's forgotten by change. Because now it's pointless that he fought for her. It's also pointless that he fell in love. Pointless looking at her eyes, promising forever, because demons, even with angel wings, waiting forever, cannot rise above. Time that was once worth it, now only time regretted and wasted. He wanted to give her open arms again, to be welcomed home in, but she just doesn't care and he's faced it. Rejection and pain she has been giving, sometimes deserving of, and so he takes it all out on him. She always has to be right because he's always wrong, for any and everything, killing his sanity in flames so dim. So he leaves her feeling hate and refuses to help her anymore. The blizzard called him for their love in a grave of ice for eternity more. His fog of hot breath in the air reminds him that he's alive, it's such time that makes his existence worth it. But he won't ever need her again, since she considers that these snowy memories forgotten by change is bullshit. The four circles aimed at her had made his heart and blood mutually cold. If he gets the sting of the loss, knowing he would never have worried about over someone who's changed infinite fold. I'll leave you to freeze with your demons, for there's no place in my heart for compromise. You're no longer angel, and now I all see all the lies. It's only so much colder tonight, overlooking the city as couples and children left and right go to sleep one at a time, turning off their lights. In the same second occurrence, the hovering gray clouds grow thicker, covering the stars as in their last dance in suffocating shrouds. Say it isn't so, she says. She realizes he's not coming back. She's left behind with these snow memories forgotten by change, falling beautiful and white in wide range, while mocking her shallow heart, so ugly and black. As Kyan looked over his completed work, he heard the faint sound of glass shattering at the bar over the sound of his music. His eyes trailed to where the sound came from without looking up and came to an automatic conclusion. 7th time in the last 3 weeks. Damn it, Lupe, again? Kyan put his notebook and MP3 player in the messenger bag he had with him and left it all at the table to keep it from being damaged in case there was a fight. He cracked his neck before getting up and walked over to the bar. Lupe was surrounded by the group that Kyan had been watching before, who had set their eyes on Jade and Lupe both prior. Oh, so y'all want to gang up on me, huh? Well, I can handle all 9 of you. Lupe mouthed off as he caught his fist, staggering around in obvious signs that he was drunk. Kyan slapped a palm to his face. There's 6 of them, Lupe. Not 9, 6. I swear you'd make an ass out of yourself again before we left, Kyan said in his mind. Damn, guys, he's a funny little son of a bitch, ain't he? One of them said in a thick country drawl, leading to the rest of them laughing. Great. Brown boots, button-up shirts over white beaters, blue jeans, and trucker hats with their voices and laughs slightly muffled by wads of chewing tobacco. Why in the hell is it that Lupe and I seem to be redneck magnets? It just always has to be the ones who give the good, respectful country gentleman a bad name. Oh well, better step in and end this quick. Hopefully. Kyan thought to himself as he pushed past 2 of the 6 and stood in front of Lupe, thus between his friend and the group. Who the hell are you? The heaviest and tallest of the 6 said. He seemed to be the ringleader. I could say I'm your motherfucking conscience, but let's forget about Dre as well as formalities and jokes you likely wrath-loathing selves may not get. See, I don't want any trouble, and I'm sure there's a logical explanation and a reasonable way to talk this out, from which point me and my overly intoxicated friend will take our leave and let you get back to your drinks. Kyan said, his voice calm and reasonable. The group simply laughed at him before their leader spoke in. Oh yeah, there's an explanation. Your friend was hitting on our girlfriends and we ain't too happy about it. Leader of the group said, Bullshit. Your girlfriends were going all over the bar talking to every guy they saw, and I just happened to be one of them. It's not my fault you were too busy looking at me to pay attention to them. Do I want your phone number or your MySpace? Lupe yelled, causing everyone in the bar to look at him. Kyan put a palm to his face. Dumbass. It's kind of hard to try and appear civil to these creeps when you're A, elevating the situation, B, saying things that make it hard to keep a straight face, and C, who the hell uses MySpace anymore? Kyan thought. You little... The leader says he jumped at Lupe, only to have Kyan push him back. He no longer found himself struggling with not laughing. Both of you need to just calm down, alright? Kyan said, his eyes narrowed. No, dude, get out of the way. I'll kick it so I can kick his ass. Lupe demanded as he tried to get past Kyan, only for him to push him back as well. And what if I say I refuse, Lupe? You're drunk and couldn't even kick air in your state. Now knock it off. Kyan said as he glared at him. Lupe replied by swinging at Kyan, who didn't budge an inch. He missed, hitting the floor as he fell flat on his face. His group laughed at Lupe. Kyan quickly reached down and snatched him back up off the floor by his shirt. This was met with Lupe pulling loose, followed by a sound of a slew of profanity, aimed directly at Kyan, who responded by forcibly pushing him onto the stool. Lupe, shut up! And don't you even think about talking back. Also, if you swing on me again, or you get so much as your ass out of that stool, you'll be going through the floor. We both know you can't hope to fight against me and win when you're drunk, so I don't think you want to make that mistake. Lupe glared at him, but he stayed put, barely due to how much he was rocking around. Alright, now that he's quiet, maybe we can get somewhere, Kyan said to himself as he looked at the six standing in front of him, all of them appearing even more ready to start fighting. Kyan had been in many situations like this before, so it was nothing new to him. He could take them down with ease if he had to, but he was hoping it wouldn't come to that. He and Lupe had orientation at Ravenrock University in only an hour or so, and the last thing they needed to do was show up at the school covered in blood, be it their own or that of humans. What the hell are you staring at, you creepy bastard? One of the six said to Kyan. Okay, normally I'd take offense to that, especially considering that this is just a typical scenario where a bad redneck gives the actual good ones the bad name they already undeservedly have. But regardless, before you take next step and call me emo, or a long-haired fag, or some other bit of ignorant diatribe that you loathsomely loquacious losers may come up with, I want to simply say that I don't care about your insults. I'm not up for fighting, alright? So I'll politely say this, once more, that I don't want any trouble. If my friend did any of the things you said, then I'll apologize for him. Now, how about doing us a favor and letting us leave peacefully? I wouldn't want to have to reluctantly hurt any of you. Kyan says he looked out at the floor and then back at the group. His eyes were narrowed, but were also glowing red with crimson sparks crackling out of them violently. A trademark of his bloodline that showed when they were losing patience, letting anger take hold. At the sight of Kyan's eyes giving off this strange glow and sparks, the group stepped back several steps except for the leader who didn't seem threatened by any of it. So all the people other than Kyan, Lupe, and the group had ran out of the bar out of fear from the rising tension that was inching rapidly towards a brawl. I've heard all about your kind, monster. Those clothes should have been a dead giveaway. The same with the color of your eyes and your contact lenses could have been the case, but this confirms it. You're a demon, aren't you? Lear said he stood in place. Kyan's eyebrows twitched a few times. Then he spoke again as the glow and sparks faded. His words neither acknowledging nor denying what he was. See what I meant? Anticipate a crack at my clothes, but I'll let that slide. I mean, after all, I have a saying. Girls these days love piercings and tattoos more than beer bellies fucking cows to go moo. But again, that's just a take on the bad rednecks. Like the shit-kicking jackass I'm looking at right now with that metaphor on mules being quite literal to your looks, as much as I don't want to disrespect donkeys. Kyan said, intentionally trying to make the man angry. It also embarrassed him to where he couldn't reply. Kyan continued upon seeing that the man really did become at a loss for words. And with his next words came the truth from his own mouth. Yeah, I'm a demon, pal, and call me what you want. Though I consider the term monster an insult when humans have just as much right to that title as my kind, as you call us do. Stereotype for you humans is just like a species for us, in that there are good ones and there are bad ones. Fact is, if I was truly one of your campfire tale spooks you humans tend to speak of in the dead of night just to scare little children, the kind of monster that you see in your typical slasher movie, well then, a lot of you would be nothing but a mess of body parts and entrails on the floor right now. Kyan says his eyes sparked again. Lupe wasn't sober, but he still had enough coherency to know that Kyan was doing everything he could to keep calm. Kyan indeed was a demon, but he refused to live the war-loving and violence-hungry concept of it. He really didn't want to hurt anyone, nor kill anyone. What this guy in the question didn't realize was he was only making things worse by not accepting Kyan's wishes. Kyan turned to Lupe with a serious expression on his face, yet the energy no longer in his eyes. Come on. Whether this guy likes it or not, we're leaving. Kyan says he grabbed Lupe's arm and tried to pull him out to the door. Things weren't going to be that easy. You're not going anywhere. The leader says you reached into his pocket and pulled out a switchblade, pointing at Kyan who didn't budge. Dude, I can't stand assholes who can't take a hint, and you're really starting to piss me off. Kyan said, His voice was now showing slight hints of aggression. Kine thought back to the girl with stiletto heels on the creaking floor. There was a creaking floor plank under him and the man, and as he tested his foot on, he was able to tell that the nails were loose. Yeah, is that so? Yeah, is that so? Well, then what are you going to do about it? Lear said as he pointed the knife closer towards Kine. Kine showed a slight smile. Hey, Lupe, give me one way that you can circumcise a redneck. Kine joked. I think you told me that one before. Kick assist in the chin, right? Lupe answered. Kine stomped the wooden floor hard, which caused the plank to rise up and hit the man fiercely between the legs, forcing him to reel over in pain as he held his crotch while rolling on the floor gasping, trying to scream and unable to catch a breath to do so. Yeah, and that's the other way. Though, let's hope that keeps him from reproducing as well. Kine said as he pushed past the man's friends, only to have yet another one stand in his path. You think we're just gonna let what you did to him slide? Let alone your friend hitting on our girls? The man said. Kine stood his ground as he stared back with a slight grin. Whether you let it slide or not makes no difference, because either way, we're leaving. Be it stepping over you or by you or over you. As far as your friend goes, I highly doubt he'll be good to any chick anytime soon, Kine said, calmly staring back at the man who still reeled over in pain on the floor holding his male parts. You fucking prick, the man said as he stepped towards Kine. Move, or you'll be the next one to not be fucking with his prick. Kine snapped as he got in the man's face as well. Suddenly, one of the women that the men were with stepped between the two. Her words made apparent that she was this man's girlfriend. Stop it, Hank. His friend was telling the truth, all right? Me and the girls were talking to the other men at the bar, but it's because we're tired of all you treat us like we're just trophies. And also the other things you do to us. You don't deserve a girlfriend, just like these two don't deserve the criticism that you've given when you have no right to talk. Even if he's a demon, he is still just as much a human as us. If he doesn't want any trouble and trying to stop a fight on behalf of both sides. You were nowhere near the man you were when I first fell in love with you. Hell, Janine even tried to talk to him a few minutes ago, and he had the dignity to say no, and politely, might I add, while guys like you would have just had interest in getting your dicks wet, she said. The man responded by shaking his hand at its side before delivering a fierce backhand to her face. The girl fell to the ground. Going into tears, she held her mouth while the other girls held around her to check on her. Damn it, Hank, what do you think you're doing? This is your girlfriend, one of the girls said. Stupid bitch. That's what you deserve for not only not knowing your place, but also attempting to cheat on me. He says he attempted to kick her in the stomach. He found his foot stopped mid-kick. That's enough, Kine said calmly. A bit too calm. He stuck his leg out literally to keep the girl from being kicked. His foot blocking the man's from connecting with her stomach. Upon doing so, Kine picked up on something that he didn't before, having not noticed due to his eyes being locked on the man. Her stomach had a prominent bulge. She was pregnant. The man stared back at Kine as he raised his fist, only to hesitate and go wide-eyed with fear at the sight of Kine's face, only an inch from his. His teeth were bared and both eyes sparkled wildly. I didn't want to fight, but I think I just changed my mind, Kine said in a snarl. The man had just triggered one of the key things that could easily piss Kine off to where he had no problem fighting. Hurting someone innocent, especially the opposite sex. You just hit a woman. Now I want you to try hitting me, Kine said. His eyes glowed brighter, hues of crimson, his teeth grind together more and more with each word. The man replied with a fierce punch to Kine's face in a reaction not out of anger, but out of fear to try and get the monster he considered Kine away from him. Kine turned his head from the impact, then back to him with no sign of pain. He then picked the man up by his throat with one hand until his feet dangled off the ground as he struggled to breathe. He looked at the woman still on the ground as she looked back in tears. You can do much better than this, miss. You're beautiful and you have a beautiful thing growing inside of you. This isn't the kind of man that you need for that baby, he said to her as he tightened his grip. The rest of the girls stayed crowded around the woman on the floor as Kine stared at the man whose face grew red from lack of air. Get her to a hospital. It's right down the street, but you should still take a cab. Do you need money for a car? Do you need money for a cab? Kine asked them. I have my car, but thank you. Thank you so much, one of the girls said as they helped the other off the floor. Kine nodded his head, though his eyes stayed focused on the one he was holding up as he listened to their footsteps fade as they left out of the front door. Finally, without words, Kine tossed the man at one of the walls so hard that the entire building seemed to shake from it as the man rolled on the ground holding his now dislocated arm. The rest of the group stood in sheer belief. Kine, however, walked over to a jukebox, put in a few coins, and following several button presses, Passenger by Deftones from their album White Pony started playing. Kine walked over to him, and as the man screamed in pain to the best he could muster while catching his breath from having the life choked out of him, he screamed even more when Kine reached down and twisted his arm back in socket before motioning for the man to get up. Now that we got some fight music, I just want to clarify something, asshole. I don't respect you as a man because you're nowhere near the definition, but I have moral standings to where I'm not hitting a human being when they're down. So get the fuck up and fight me, or I can yank your ass up and beat you down from there. Kind says he did a motion with his fingers, telling the man to come on. That's when he felt something break against his head from behind and narrowed his eyes upon it happening, realizing he just got hit with a beer bottle. Never ends when you creeps like you, does it? Always wanting to fight sheep and take the easy way out, right? Well, that's kind of hard when you're getting something that doesn't have a vagina now, isn't it? Kind said simply. He turned around slowly and saw two of the other men had come up behind him while the other two were still over where Lupe was. Lupe, you think you can take those two in your current state? I'll handle these three. Kind says he felt the back of his head and noticed it was bleeding from pulling a piece of glass from the wound, which quickly healed. Dude, why the fuck you get to fight more than me? Lupe said, slurring his words. Kind heard the one he threw into the wall get up. The second he did, Kind hiked his leg up to in a side kick to his face, knocking him out the window behind him. There, happy? Now we both had the same number of partners for this little slam dance. Kind says he looked back at Lupe only to see that Lupe was already brawling with his two opponents, while the two Kind had paired with had ran to the back of the bar and just stared at him, this cocked with uncertain looks on their faces. Kind just walked back and forth as he stared them down. And then showed a smirk. You bitches can hit a man from behind, with a weapon and in numbers. Yet he turns around so much as says boo, and you can't do anything except pull your dress up and run away? Spectre from the type that prefers hitting innocent women, a gender with no balls. Now, seeing as whichever one of you that cracked me with that bottle got blood on a hoodie I paid $60 for, I think that constitutes what you guys would call me giving you a good old-fashioned passionate ass whooping. But hey, if you're the ones who have the pussies in you in your girlfriend's relationship, especially as you hit them and not a grown man, I can understand you being afraid to get your purse slapped out of your hands or breaking a nail. Kind said to them. Do you ever shut up? One of them said. Nope. Plus, seeing as you're over there with a him proudly holding your hand, considering your girlfriend's ditched you with good reason, at least I'm not the one with my one step away from my mouth being too full of cock to talk. Kind insulted. Kind honestly felt himself cringe at most of his jokes. He was by no means a homophobe. If anything, he had gay friends, and had only said what he said because he knew it would be a surefire way to anger the two in front of him, calling them things he knew they hated themselves. Regardless, his plain word as they were both ran at him. Kind's eyes sparkled as he glanced at a chair right next to him. Damn it, hit him already! One of the men against Lupe said. What do you think I'm trying to do? He's like a monkey. The other said. The whole time, Kind was trying to provoke his two into fighting him. Lupe's two opponents had been trying to hit him to no avail. Even though he was drunk, Lupe dodged, parried, and ducked around each of their punches with what seemed to be full awareness and fast reflexes due to an increase in adrenaline. A vast contrast to his clumsiness before. Then as he ducked, the fist of each man collided with the other's face. From there, Lupe jumped onto the bar and kicked one of them in the face before doing a backflip off the bar in response to the other man trying to grab his legs. As Lupe flipped over their heads, he landed in a chair at a table. The one he kicked ran at him, only for Lupe to jump up from his seat and bend down, grabbing the man's waist and pushing his body up with enough momentum to toss the guy over him and through the table behind him, breaking it as he fell. Lupe gave a small chuckle as he looked at the guy sprawled on the floor in pain before being pulled around and punched in the face by the other man still standing, to which he took the punch and gave one back as they exchanged blows back and forth. Across the bar, Kind watches the chair he kicked across the floor trip one of the two, causing him to fall face first on the floor and knocked him unconscious instantly with a broken nose while the other continued running. As this happened, Kind didn't realize he was standing in front of the window he had kicked the other guy out of, and that the man was standing behind him, hurt, making a grab for him. Kind then felt the man's arms reach around his neck from behind as the other closed the rest of the distance and proceeded to swing at his stomach, with Kind coughing each breath being knocked out of him, or so it seemed. The man stopped punching when his phone rang as he answered it. And he spoke to the person on the other end. As he answered, he spoke to the person on the other end. Man, we're currently having trouble with a couple punks at that one bar we always go to. Get down here as soon as possible. He said before Kind kicked the phone out of his hand, since his legs were free. He then crushed it under his foot on the floor before breaking free from the other, showing that he had been toying with him all along. He then backhanded the man outside of the window in the face, knocking him down yet again before staring at the other. When your friend asks what happened, you can tell him that you lost reception and simply I broke your phone. Makes no difference to me, assuming you're conscious to tell him anything when he arrives. Kind said before looking down, noticing another loose plank exactly under where he and the man were standing, which he stomped on like before, only this time the man was catapulted upwards. Not high, but just enough height for Kind to give him a fierce thrust kick that sent the man flying across the room. Lupe continued to trade blows with his one opponent still standing, when suddenly the man Kind had kicked collided with his opponent. Both their heads connected, knocking them out instantly. Kind, what the hell? That was mine, Lupe yelled. I kind of said that wrong. Hang on. Kind, what the hell? That was mine, Lupe yelled. Kine moved his hair from his eyes and picked his goggles up from the floor, since they came off in the scuffle before looking at Lupe. When the reinforcements arrive, you can have all of them if you like, Kine said. What reinforcements? Lupe asked. As if right on cue, the door to the bar flew open and 7 more stormed in with baseball bats and other weapons. Them. Have fun, since I still have one more outside I need to have a few words with, he told Lupe. You're not going anywhere, one of them said. Yeah, your friend over there on the ground holding the subject of his quite likely mediocre sex life said the same thing. Look what happened to him. Therefore, you think you can stop me? Really, don't tempt me, asshole. Namely, given it's not me you need to worry about right now, Kine said before climbing through the window. Outside, he found the man crawling on the other end of the alley, with several cuts on his body and broken glass around him, holding his mouth, which had a few broken teeth from Kine's backhand earlier. As Kine slowly walked towards him, he heard the sound of breaking glass and furniture being tossed around inside the bar. I tried to warn them, Kine thought to himself. The man got back to his feet and tried to limp away, only for Kine to pursue him. Seeing that he couldn't escape, he took another swing at Kine, who grabbed his arm before pinning him against the brick wall at the end of the alley. Personally, between us, I could completely massacre you and all your friends inside if I was any lesser of a man. But I don't kill humans. But I think I may make do with breaking a few fingers so you get reminded never to lay your hands on a woman again, Kine said to him before hearing a phone ringing and noticing it was from the man's pocket. I'll get that for you, before grabbing the phone from the terrified man and answering it. Kine's heart dropped at the sound of a woman crying on the other end, recognized the sound as that of the girl the man had hit before. His heart dropped more as he tried to calm her down, only to be haunted by what she had said. Said last, he stared back at the man. As he did, he crushed his phone. Without another word, Kine pulled the man up and threw him against the wall, punching repeatedly in the face and stomach all the while, causing the man to spit up blood before letting his face get an inch from his as he did before. Same expression with burning eyes and gritted teeth from previously, only now Kine's eyes were filled with tears. You killed your baby. The most innocent form of life on this damn planet, and you caused it to die when you knocked her down, Kine said in slow snarls before reeling back for one more punch. Much harder one than the others. No, I'm sorry. Please, damn it, listen, I'll never hit another woman again, I swear, but please, don't kill me. The man pleaded, begging for his life. I know you won't hit another woman. Or anyone else. I'll see to that, Kine snarled. Finally, Kine swung as the man closed his eyes tight. But nothing happened other than a loud crash right next to him. The man opened his eyes. Kine intentionally missed him, and his entire fist had went through the brick wall less than an inch from the man's skull, with the crimson that had been surging from his eyes dimmed to a small red spark in each. I don't understand. You could have just killed me. But thank you, was all the man said before Kine grabbed both his hands. Don't thank me, Kine said simply before crack. The man screamed once again, louder than ever, as Kine crushed every bone in both the man's hands and watched him fall to the ground in agony. His hands were now what resembled bloody crumpled paper, as chipped bones poked out through tattered skin, and his fingers hung limply in all directions as useless strips of flesh. Real men have no reason to be killed. But while your fate deserves rot in hell, no, it's not my place to do it, since, as I said, I don't kill humans, but I do kill their ability to be inhuman. I told you, I'd break a few fingers to remind you, but now that reminder will never leave your mind, since your hands can no longer hurt another woman or innocent baby, let alone do anything. You'll see couples go by knowing you can't even fuck yourself anymore, let alone pull off a trigger to end yourself. All you have now is suffering ahead, and pain that flares up when it rains, in contrast to what I hope was at least, the very least, was a quick death for your baby. Now, you may want to scream louder, and hope someone hears you to be able to take you to a hospital, given even if you still had a phone, you wouldn't be able to dial for help. Kine said coldly before walking back towards the broken window, leaving the man in agony on the ground. Then Kine heard a fierce growl come from inside the bar. No, Kine thought to himself. Then another loud continuous scream to match those of the man Kine had brutalized filled the air. As a severed booted leg torn off at the knee flew out the window and onto the alleyway floor. Then he heard another growl. Kine expected Lupe to fight them if needed, with just his normal skills. But not this. Damn it, Lupe, no! You're going too far, Kine said as he jumped back through the window. He looked over at Lupe, who was on the floor, convulsing and rolling around as one of the men held what was left of his leg. A blood-gushing stump, while his friends attempted to wrap a bandana around as a tourniquet. All of them had been kicking Lupe, but had stopped for the fact that for whatever reason they couldn't comprehend, Lupe had amputated their friend with a claw that grew from one of his hands. And the growls. Growls that were coming from Lupe. They weren't growls that a human could emulate. Only Kine knew the reason, and for that he knew he had to act fast. Kind ran over to Lupe, whose eyes were bulging out as he shook and convulsed on the ground with strange black fur sprouting out of his skin. He had seen him do this before, so it wasn't a full concern to him. It was a concern for the humans around them, though he hated their ways. What the hell are you doing? Get out of here, Kind said to the group. You're going to pay for this, you monster, one of them said as he and the others gathered up their friends that Kind and Lupe had knocked out before. Save it. The more time you spend hanging around here while he's in the middle of transforming will make it more likely he's going to lash out and do more damage. Go, Kind demanded. The group ran out of the bar screaming as they carried their injured friend and those still unconscious. Now it was just Kind and Lupe left inside, to which Kind breathed a sigh of relief, even though he had wished Lupe would have no need for this today. Or at least not at this moment. He had stood by Lupe the many times he had done this before, so he knew what to expect, and also why it was coming out. A primal urge that showed itself when Lupe was in pain or angry. Two factors that played a vital role only minutes ago. Lupe was a full-blooded werewolf, and this was one of the multiple transformation types he had. However, unlike Kind, who was able to hold his powers in without much of a problem, at least that is most of the time, Lupe couldn't hold back the urge if it manifested too much, though he could transform at will if necessary, in the daytime or at night. But this was a situation where, like under a full moon, Lupe had no control. Compared to when he willed his transformations, which happened quickly, Lupe attacked violently while turning when forced. Afterwards was when it was safe to be near him, and one of the very few people who could get close to Lupe while he was in the middle of a transformation was Kyan. And that was only because Kyan had the sheer physical strength to restrain Lupe if need be. Lupe kept his rational thought in humanity after transforming, which most other werewolves couldn't keep a hold of so well. If at all given, they tend to let their animal side take hold, even if they had rational thought to their actions and clarity. Other than that, however, Lupe was the embodiment of a humanoid wolf, a creature with the same animal senses and speed of its four-legged counterpart, only amplified. Yet if one were to compare Lupe to Bane from Hell's prophets, it wouldn't be a matter of who was stronger, but who was more of an animal. In such contests, Bane would win out of sheer bloodthirstiness, compared to Lupe, who was like in his human form, only chose to fight, with killing being a last resort, though he was indeed more feral with obvious reason. As one of their freshly amputated prior adversaries had just learned the hard way. We should have left when I said we should have. Sure, Jade, we'll watch the bar. What's worse that could happen? Kind, you dumbass, Kind thought to himself, mocking his own compassion. As Kind looked around for signs of anyone coming into the bar from out the front window, he heard the sounds of Lupe's pain-filled groans and growls start to go away. And everything was silent except for Lupe beginning to speak. Sorry, dude. Know that if I'm pushed too far, I can't control it. Kind heard Lupe say behind him and in response turned around. Lupe was standing before him, fully transformed. Long, thick yet spiky-looking black fur now covered his body, with the only exception being in his mohawk, which remained unchanged in its colors of green and red compared to his ebony fur. A long snout and mouthful of sharp teeth were now where his nose and jaw should be. His nose, his shoes had been ripped apart by the sharp nails on each of his toes that mimicked the ones on his fingers. They were sharp and strong enough to cut through metal, and yet long enough to strike at a distance while being short enough to fight effectively, although Lupe had the ability to extend each of his claws with nothing more than a thought. His eyes were completely yellow aside from two black pinholes for pupils, and his clothes had also been ripped because of his muscle span to where they were now more developed in every part of his animal-like body. In this form, his legs had the strength to carry him at high speeds on the ground and high distances whenever he jumped, while his arms had the power to stop attacking Rhino dead in its tracks with one punch, and enhanced speed to strike a rattlesnake 10 times before he even had a chance to strike once. Lupe in this form was just a threat, but also a rival to Kyan, and one of the few who had ever had managed to knock him out in a fight. Lupe, you idiot. How many times have I told you maybe you shouldn't let people push you too far? Kyan scolded. I know, but I guess it would be easier if unleashing this side of me didn't feel so good. Lupe replied, though Kyan could tell it was a sarcasm. He knew that compared to when Lupe willed his transformations, it was agonizing when it was forced. Kyan just stared at Lupe before being startled by a woman screaming. Oh my god, what happened to my bar? Jade said, almost in tears as she saw broken glass, tables, and chairs all over the place. Jade, I swear I'll get this all fixed. Trust me, Kyan explained to her. How can I trust you with that? When I can't even trust you with 10 minutes while I was out, she sobbed. Kyan looked down with a scoff before going back to the table where he and Lupe had been sitting to grab his things. Lupe, let's go, man. Kyan said calmly before walking out the door, which led Lupe glancing at Jade regrettably and following him. Jade then realized what she just said. Guys, please, wait. Sorry, I didn't mean that. Please don't leave yet. Jade said as she followed after Kyan and grabbed his hand. He pulled his hand away again. Jade, though Lupe is the main one who got out of control, I still lost it myself. My powers are much worse. So to answer your question about trusting me, you're right. You can't. But take this. It should be enough for the repairs. I'll see you around. Kind of said to her as he handed her a number of $100 bills before walking away, followed by Lupe. It was then that Jade realized what Kyan meant about how he could end up hurting her without wanting to. What Kyan didn't know is that she still didn't believe that he could. End of chapter 3. Alright guys, so I think I kind of did that a lot better than when I tried to, record this last night. Obviously, as I've said before, one of the key issues with me, doing these readings is that I tend to have a habit of, getting caught in my words. I think it's mainly just because I tend to, my brain processes the words faster than my mouth can. So usually I'm, reading through all this really quickly, that I try to my mouth tries to catch up with what I'm seeing. So, yeah, I know, my book readings aren't perfect. And also, I do apologize for the fact that when I started this, I was actually, I had that little coughing fit. Something got caught in my throat. I actually, had, a little, granola, had a granola bar before I started the stream. Probably wasn't a good idea, but at the very least, we got through it this time. I think, things went well. We did it all in one take this time, or one, go without any BRBs or anything. So, yeah, with this right here, we had the introduction of Kyan and Lupe, two more, key characters, to the story. Because mainly, with this, as I said before, I try to do this book with, the characters being not really a whole lot of, the whole concept of, main characters, because I try to make it, where Kyan, Lupe, Ren, Crow, Finch, as well as the female characters, Fiona, Dusk, Oki, and Scarlet, they all, definitely have, their moments and everything. So, they all have, their time in the spotlight. Obviously, key characters this focuses on, as far as the female characters is Fiona and Dusk. If I was to say, main characters, they are obviously, the main female leads of this. So Fiona's probably maybe the main protagonist of the story, because originally, obviously the story started with Dusk. Everything started with Dusk, but also a lot of things revolve around Dusk, especially with some of the later chapters that are coming up. But it's kind of in a sense that they're duo antagonists or whatever, in the sense that Fiona is definitely one of the main protagonists, and also so is Dusk. They both have their own little storylines here. And it's kind of in this regards to the guys, they each have their own stories. A lot of it's been hinted at, namely with Ren and the fact that he's searching for someone, and Kyan, of course, it's basically shown here just how much emphasis is put on Kyan. He's the character that's based around myself. But yeah. So moving forward, there's definitely gonna be a lot of things you're gonna see, such as be seen in regards to more character development for all of them. This was just an introduction for Kyan and Lupe, but something I did want to kind of get to talk to you guys about just a little bit. In regards to something I was gonna share last night. Let me see if I can find it real quick before we actually wrap up the stream. It was back up here with it was then Kyan's introduction here. So let me get right up here to where it was. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the birthday. So I was gonna say something about this last night, but there's actually two things here. So kind of getting a little bit personal on this. So years ago, one of the reasons why I wanted to try to continue my writing is because years ago I had someone who was a mentor of mine. His name was John Adams. He was back I used to go to church and ages ago. He was one of the main people there. It was never really judgmental of how I looked or anything. He was a massive influence in my life. He was an amazing man. He never bothered anyone. Was always willing to talk to people and listen to them. And he was just such a beautiful soul. And he had two kids. They just lost their mother. His wife. To I believe it was breast cancer a few years prior. Well, it was. It's been well over a decade ago now. But he unfortunately passed away. To kind of go into the circumstances of it, he was murdered. He was coming home from church one night because he was there. He kind of did stuff for the youth group stuff and everything. He was coming home from church and these two guys held him up. And the police called it a botched robbery. No, there's no botched robbery to it. He was straight up murdered. He was shot right in the head. And I remember waking up the next morning, finding out about it, and it was just extremely devastating because this man was like a father figure to me. He was one of the main ones that saw my potential with writing. The church had a Christmas play, and had a Christmas program. He wanted me to write a play for it. Everyone, the others were all concerned with doing things about the meaning of Christmas. I was telling him, I was well, I like to see, them do something this year for, them doing, a play based around Santa. And he's like, why don't you write it? And I was like, you think, and he's like, me? And he's like, I've seen your poetry, and you can do it. So I started working on writing it. He looked through it, and he actually, went back through, added some stuff in himself to kind of help me out with it, and he, printed it all out, made scripts, and it ended up, being like, one of the 3 programs for the Christmas parade that year. Christmas play, I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. And he's the one that gave me the confidence to do it. Because originally I was just saying it would be cool if they did it. And he told me, he's like, well, you do it. And, it ended up being like, everyone loved it. I just want to make something for the kids there and everything. Because everything was all about the meaning of Christmas, true meaning of it and all that. I was like, a lot of these kids are like too young to really probably like really break, rationalize all that. A lot of these kids, though, they know Santa Claus. They know his elves. They know the reindeer. And hearing the kids like laughing in the audience, it was like, one of the best nights of my life. Knowing that I actually, made them smile and everything, with this little play about like these reindeer, this mischievous elf who, basically let like, these reindeer out, and all these elves like afterwards are like trying to like work together to try to like, round them back up, which I was one of the ones actually, was able to star in the play as well. And I got, it was cool because like everyone like, like who got like the other leads, it was basically everyone from the youth group, the main ones, like in the main leads, like the other elves aside from me, it was the main ones I actually wanted to do it. Wanted to actually take part in it with me. And so that was like a great night. But yeah, he's a key influence to my writing. Point is, like, long story to this, the birth date right here, that's his birth date. That was the day he was born. And another little thing is that the headmaster of the school, John Kendrick, you guys probably like know where I'm going with this. He's heavily based around, my mentor, around John Adams. So it was kind of like this book is sort of like a dedication to him in a way as well. At least, not entirely, like, it's not pure, like, fully a dedication to him. It's just, it's thing, it's in regards to getting him a character in it. Obviously, a lot of the whole point behind this book is making something, like, for those who are, like, outcasts, who dealt with bullying and everything. You guys have seen, like, this book is very heavy on, like, the concept of bullying. Like, so far, like, just about every character has been facing it in some way. Oki being attacked by Stonewall, Fiona kind of dealing with it, with, like, Hell's Prophets, the same with Dusk. This very, like, heavy in this. So, Mr. John knew I was doing, like, a lot of bullying at the time, and he was always supportive of me. So that's, like, basically, like, the whole concept behind all this. The character of John Kendrick, the headmaster, that's a character, based on my mentor. That's pretty much him. Because that's basically the kind of man he was. He was always willing to try to help others. And, like, a lot, and so many people have said that, when he was murdered, the bad thing about it is they wouldn't have had to demand money from him. They didn't have to hold him up at gunpoint. He would have gave them money, he would have, like, done it. And that's just what's really sad about it, is that he was the kind of person who would, like, give you the shirt off his back. He would take you out for a meal and everything. He loved helping people. And that's basically the reason I made, the headmaster in this book, John Kendrick, based around that. The fact that no matter what it is, he loves the students, and he's always doing everything he can to try to help them. So, yeah, guys, kind of like just wanted to, like, go a little bit deeper on that. But with that said, I will definitely be doing, I noticed like a few little errors I still had to kind of like fix here and there, like, regards to describing like Jade's wardrobe and everything. It showed both white and gray. I also got like some other things I need to go and fix, in regards to, like, some things I have in like periods, at the end of the sentences and everything. So I need to go back there and kind of like work on that. But next week, chapter 4, Bullseye, will be probably like doing this, which is going to be continuing more of like the whole story with Kine and Lupe, while also kind of alternating between, the little adventure they're about to go on before they get to the school, as well as, like, alternating back to the school and seeing, continue to show what Lupe, showing what Fiona, Scarlet, and, and them are up to. And trust me, Dusk is going to be back soon. I promise. You're going to be seeing Dusk again soon. I know there's a lot of people that love, have read this who love Dusk. Don't worry, she's not being, like, noped out of the story, for a while or whatever. She's going to be back in the next chapter. So anyways, yeah, guys. Thank you those who came out and and check this out, as well as anyone who may watch, who may read this or listen to me, reading it to you, like, after the stream is live and everything, reading, like, listen to the recording of it and everything. So again, next week I'll be back with this. And even though I am still on my hiatus from live streaming that I spoke about in my YouTube community post, I am considering possibly trying to do something for, like, something multiplayer on Saturday, since Mac is going to be off. We're gonna see how things go. But until the next one, Rogues, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and the fact I at least did it properly this time, and I'll see you guys in the next stream. Thanks for watching. Thanks so much for watching my stream. If you like my content and want to see more, be sure to follow me and hit that notification bell. You can also find me on Instagram and join my Guilded server to hang out and join in on occasional movie nights, as well as check out my TikTok, where I post comic book clips for my live streams. If you're an aspiring streamer, my website contains a collection of over a dozen completely free text guides with advice to help you get started. Sections dedicated to proper networking, reports to channel panels, handling dead air, and many other topics. You can find a link to my website on my YouTube channel. See you guys next time.